And welcome to the Everyday Board Game Podcast with your hosts, Daniel.
And Daniel.
Daniel, this is garbage weather out.
Oh, it's not that bad. It could have been better if you showed up earlier.
I know. I had to get food for my... And, here's the sad thing is, so I go to a drink place called Dutch Bros. They are not sponsoring this podcast, but I do like
But we are fans, yeah. Oh, Cheers. Speaking of Dutch Bros, before we get going into this one, I found out that I can still get the pumpkin creme brulee. Cold brew.
Yeah.
Because they have it in zero sugar.
Oh, nice. Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, so I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah, so I bring it up because we've had some questionable weather lately, like clouds of mosquitoes and. I 100+ degree weather with
I wouldn't consider mosquitoes weather, more like plagues.
Nor would I. But have you gone to our school and seen the clouds that they are creating of just pure? These mosquitoes are hanging out. I do go to HTO. I like that quite a bit. That's my second favorite now. Dutch Bros is still my favorite. But the mosquitoes hang out right on the door of our school, and they're tapping at the window
let us in.
Yeah, like the Jurassic Park movie.
Yeah, smorgasbord in there.
It's absolutely terrifying. And we multiple days we've had to cancel all of our outdoor recesses and outdoor events because of just the mosquitoes. It's insane. But because of that, we're getting all those mosquitoes because of all the rain. Which, as I was going to get Dutch Bros, coming back to it, I was just waiting in line. It was nice and sunny out, beautiful. Then it started pitter-pattering a little bit of rain. And then just out of nowhere, whoosh! Just the water was sideways, like it was like in a hurricane, gale force winds. And one of the employees was still out there taking the orders. She went inside real quick. I was going
to say, that poor girl.
Grabbed a raincoat, came right back out.
Yeah.
It's like, I got to give them the utmost credit for doing that.
It's funny. I was talking to my wife about it on Sunday because we went back to Dutch Bros on Sunday because we did Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah.
And it was like 1 o'clock. It was already 100 degrees or something like that. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, it's funny. The first experience I ever had at Dutch Bros is when we went to it in, I believe, might have been Tucson or Yuma.
Yeah.
Outside of the Screaming Eagle, I got that one time that was just very sweet, even before I stopped doing sugar.
Yeah.
But
Golden Eagle?
I don't know which one it is. Yeah. It's the Golden Eagle Screaming Eagle. It's sugar on sugar with about that much
caramel
coffee.
Whipped cream. Yeah. There's a hint of coffee.
There's a hint, yeah. And so I was telling we were joking about because they were out there. They were in short shorts and stuff like that. And I was telling my wife okay, you don't expect that kind of it's not like we're going to a bikini coffee shop that you see up in Oregon and Seattle and stuff like that. I was like, okay, this is a little weird for me because I'm used to uniforms that you would have to
sure, yeah.
Starbucks, you have to wear pants and a shirt.
None of the employees had pants on.
Nope, no, that's not going on there. They had shorts. So clarify, they had shorts. So we were sitting there and I'm like, it was a kind of a shock because you never really saw that out in this area. Yeah. And now I was sitting there and I'm like, I don't blame them. It is ridiculously hot out here, and there is no shade
none
whatsoever. They probably have to have a can of sun spray in there, a gallon of it.
Yeah, no, it's been insane. I felt so bad for those employees. And she had a smile on. She was like, no, it's fine. It is what it is, I was like, you guys are awesome. So I give them a big tip because I was like, I don't envy that at all. And then it cleared up finally. I got home. We ate dinner. And then I came over here, and now it's back.
Yeah, you brought it over here.
Shenanigan weather. I don't know.
Funny story about this weather. There was a real big thunderclap.
Yeah.
My cowboy corgi is what we call her. She's an Australian Shepherd corgi mix. Went outside to go fight the rain.
Yep, of course she did.
It's okay.
And I bet your other dog, the half
came
husky,
inside and hid behind my legs.
Went under the table and started shaking, right?
No, honestly, he doesn't shake, but he will hide behind my legs. And it's funny, we joke about it, and you're like, you're supposed to be a husky, and I'm like, yeah, but he's also part Pomeranian. That's what you're seeing right there.
There's a Pomeranian half, that's right. Yeah, no, I can't imagine it. It's such a pleasant weather. But anyway, I digress. You know what's great for this type of weather? Sitting inside and playing some board games. That's right. And that's what we're here to talk to you guys about. We're going to jump right into today's episode. Yeah, Creative Chaos, you'd be a tomato if you went outside. Yeah, I don't blame you. I probably would too. That's why I work indoors at all times. we are going to talk about today's episode, which actually is I was really excited, like when we came up with this idea. I forget.
You came up with this idea.
Was it mine? Yeah.
Our idea. There, like, it makes sense.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize how hard it was going to be.
Right. So, I mean, there's plenty of games to choose from. That's the thing, right?
I mean, I have a short list right over here.
Yeah, my total list was 52 games that I just quickly came up, and I already just remembered a few more that I forgot putting on. Yeah. So today's list is going to be our Chits and Giggles episode. We're going to tell you guys about 8 games that are based on real world locations. Now,
16 games in total, 8 per person.
Yes. Let's clarify what we mean by location.
Okay.
Because we had this discussion.
We left it open-ended pretty much.
We did. You know,
region, building,
state, designated census location.
If you're talking about Canada, it would be a province, whatever is considered a location, something you have to go visit.
Yes, somewhere you could physically go, right? Or somebody could physically go to, right?
Yeah.
And we didn't. Nothing's fictional, right? And these are...
One of mine is a little bit more abstracted.
Sure,
and I'll explain it when I get to it.
I specified that I wanted it to be specifically... I put proper named locations.
I see, I didn't do that.
Right. And that's fair. That's totally fine. Like, I didn't want to just go, hey, a forest, and we can go to a forest. Like, I wanted it to be a designated area.
I did that on one thing.
Okay.
Because it still counts. You can still go to a designated location of that name. It's a generic name, but you can go to places that have a name. Yeah,
I figured if you can search it in Google Maps and it would find locations, then it pretty much counts, right?
Yeah.
So here's the thing with this, right? I made such a huge list, and I came up with the 8, which was incredibly difficult because this made me discover how many games... Yeah, there's plenty that are named after different locations. But, take a look at anything Stefan Feld has made. But, while I get the theme that's involved, it's really, let's be honest, right? It's not really that thematic. And so, we'll talk about a few in like, quick honorable mentions, give shout-outs to whatever games that we decided to take off the list for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But realistically, my list, I have 8 different ones for different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And we also changed it differently. We'll talk about that in a bit, but we also kind of ranked them differently as well.
Yeah. And so when we get into that part of the podcast, we'll explain how we did certain things. We will talk about our short list games that we kind of wanted, like honorable mentions in a sense, afterwards. This way we're not spoiling picks if someone has something that's on one of our short lists that
works. But before we get into that, Daniel, what have you been playing lately?
A lot. Quick shout out before I go into the actual what I've been playing lately. I showed my wife Pokemon Splendor. She refuses to play any other Splendor.
It's the one, right? The definitive one.
And the reason why she likes it so much, she thought the original Splendor was missing something. It was a little too simple.
Yep.
She looked at the Marvel Splendor and didn't want to deal with the Infinity Stone stuff.
Yep.
This Splendor, she liked the evolution aspect of it. It gives it just another step to work for.
Yeah.
And that's what she liked about this game and ended up winning it. So shout out to Korean Board Games and Space Cowboys for this fantastic version.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you have a chance to import it, check it out. But the first thing I am going to actually talk about is a game that I picked up while I was in Seattle. And I actually picked you up a copy of this as well for helping us out by taking care of the yard and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Actually got to play it on the cruise. Have played it again a second time.
Yeah.
And I really do enjoy it. I dig trick-taking games.
I'm playing it right now.
I dig trick-taking games. Yep. This is by far... And I was interested about this one because they're like, it's trick-taking, but solo.
Yep.
And I'm like, how is that going to work? Picked it up at... I forget the shop. I'll have to look it up here in a little bit. But picked it up in Seattle. And it's a fantastic game. It's a well implementation of a trick-taking style game. You're basically having conversations to rulers of a sector, and you're trying to get them to help you throughout your conquering of the realms, in a sense, to make sure it all becomes united and stuff. And so the way you're doing it is that you're choosing a pile that you're going to be playing in, and you have to win that specific amount of tricks. In this case, it goes 0 through 7. You're only ever playing 8 tricks out in a hand. And depending on where you're picking, you have to win that many tricks. So if I pick 4, I have to make sure I win 4 tricks, and 4 tricks alone. If I go over or if I go under, I lose that location and I won't get to score my points. You get more points on the smaller section, or the further out the line is. So like the 0 and the 7s, because you have to score absolutely no tricks and to get the big 0. And you have to score 7 of the 8 tricks to get the big score on the other end. Which is
huge.
And so you need I think it's 16 in a normal game to be successful. I love this game. I love the fact that you have characters that can give you a little bit of powers throughout the game, and those are the 4 that are going to be with you throughout the game. However, if you win a location, that ruler can replace one of your 4, but only for that round. Once you use them or don't use them, they're gone for the rest of the game. I like the interesting aspect of the trick, and so the way it works is each ruler has one of the 4 suits, and they're technically the trump suit. And you're having a discussion with them. So if they're playing, say, in the I suit, but their trump card is the paws, they're off topic, and so either you got to beat them in the topic and make a really good point, but if you don't have cards in that suit, you can play their specific trump suit and automatically win because you would have the highest card total because of the trump suit. And the way they word it in the rule book is you're putting them back on topic.
Yeah.
And so it's like, aha, you made a good point. And so
touche.
I love the artwork. It's a fantastic little game. It is a fun little solo game, and it has such a small footprint, too. It is... I got to play it on the cruise, and that's how much I really did enjoy it. I did pretty well in the first game. It took me a little bit to figure it out, but I did well. The second game, I got trashed because I played the full game. I didn't play the little game that recommends you to do. This way you can just learn how to play it. So I had everything out there. I had everybody's power, and the fact that some of those very powerful powers go away after you bring them down to help you out, and if you don't use it, you lose it kind of thing. Nah, it's fantastic. For Northwood, probably by far one of my favorite trick-taking games, and it's up there with one of my favorite solo games.
And in a weird way, it's super thematic, right? Like, I mean, I didn't know that going into it, but when you told me about it, I'm like, that's a really great theme. Like, I love that you're having these conversations trying to help them out. And these kings that you're trying to get to your, or leaders that you're trying to get to your to your cause. I love that you're just discussing and
you're having a discussion to try to sway them. Basically, you're politicking them to help you unite Northwood. Yeah,
it's so weird. Yeah, I think it's really cool. Awesome. The first game I wanted to talk about was a game that. So I've had this game in my collection for probably about 6 or so years. I got it in one of the first times we went to Bookman's many years ago. And this was a game that ever since I heard about it, I saw it on a Kickstarter. I couldn't back it, like way back in the day when it was on Kickstarter. And I finally got a copy of it. It was like one of those like holy grail games for me because they're pretty limited edition. It's a game called Tavarua. It's about surfing.
Yep.
And it's by the guy who made Zaya, Yeah, so, I mean...
One of these things is not like the other.
Yeah, very different. I guess he's just a surfing fan, too. And so it's a surfing game where you sail your meeples out on either a long or a short board, catch a wave at a certain time, try and ride it in. The longer you ride it in, the more points you get. But it's kind of like a press your luck kind of thing. And I remember many years ago when I played it, probably about 6 years ago when I played it for the first time, I remember I was like, it was a little confusing, whatever, but okay, fine, no worries. And I put it back on my shelf and I didn't take it off because, it was a Holy Grail game for the longest time.
Yeah.
And then I brought it back a couple weeks ago and my friend wanted to play it, so we're like, all right, let's go. We'll play it. And I had to reread the rules. It took a while to remember it. Taught them. And now I remember why it's taken me this long to play is because nothing is intuitive. It's very fiddly.
I think I played this one with you.
You
I know we
may
played
have.
a surfing game together. I don't know. It's been a long time.
You may have, but it's been a while, and now that I play it, as much as I love the pieces and love the theme and all that stuff, I don't think it's going to stay in my collection anymore because now that I played it, it's like it doesn't. There's so many problems with it. Like you're trying to balance out like your balance on the front or the back of the board. You're trying to do, or like just sustain. Like you're not even trying to do tricks. You're just trying to like hold on basically. Your tricks let you balance, but that's not really what they're for. You want to get to a certain part on the wave, but if somebody else catches it before you do, then you got to wait it out anyway. So part of the game is literally you can put down a card and that's just like discarding a card and you waiting for the wave to come up.
Okay.
And the farther back you go, the more potential points you get. But then what you have to do is you have to score really 4 times. 2 on the short board, 2 on the long board. And what's going to happen is whoever has the highest combined 2 highest scores for the long board gets the long board championship, and whoever gets the 2 highest scores for the short board becomes the short board champion. And then only those 2 people are allowed to win the ultimate championships, which has the highest other score. Yes. So, right. And it's like, it's convoluted. Like the card play is convoluted. Something that should be a nice, relaxing theme. It's just, there was too much going on. And
Have you ever been surfing?
I don't know how to swim, so no.
Surfing's not that relaxing.
Sure, but sitting on the beach and watching people surf, that's pretty relaxing.
Yeah, that's pretty relaxing.
Especially when they biff it.
Yeah, that's why it's not relaxing. I biffed it when I was first learning how to surf. Yep. I hit the front of the board, and it came around and hit me in the back of the head.
That's like step out on the rake comedy there.
Yeah, it's like I fell forward, landed face first on the board, and then it flipped around and hit me in the back end. I'm like, nope, not doing this anymore. I'm done. I'll boogie board. Thank you.
That's a Three Stooges bit, and two of the Stooges were the board.
Yes, it was.
That's ridiculous. No, I enjoyed it for what I have, and now that I'm looking online, it's not selling for much more than it was new anyway.
Yeah.
So I was like, maybe I should keep it as a collector's item because it's kind of rare. Because I think it was only like 600 copies made or something like that.
That is a collector's item. That one was ridiculous to find.
Yes, that one was. But then now it's like, it's not really selling for that much. So
might be trade fodder.
There's no room in my game room for just okay games.
I mean, there is room.
Not anymore.
No, you still have floor space.
Sure. If you follow our Instagram, you'll see the progress I've been making. It's quite a bit. But yeah, that was the first game I've been playing.
Yeah, so I things you're talking about this game brings memories, but I barely remember. I think I did play it. I think it was you, me, and Lincho that played it the first time.
Could have been.
Because I know it was like one of the summers.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was okay. Yeah. All right. So the next game I'm going to talk about is a game I am going to add to my collection when it goes on GameFound. And so it's going to be about a year or so. But it is going to be a co-production between, I believe it's Alea Games and Awaken Realms.
Okay. Took me a moment.
And this is Puerto Rico 1897. And I remember playing it. I found Puerto Rico to be a fine game. I really enjoyed what it did. I would not play it at a 5-player count ever again. That took forever. But we just recently played it with Gamehead Geek a couple weeks back. And I really enjoyed the mess out of it. Especially at a 3-player game, it actually played quickly. It wasn't
bad.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I really did enjoy it. I love the upgrading system that you could do. Mm-hmm. Like I can have like this really cool thing that if I put something in my plantation, I immediately can put a worker out of the supply onto it. Or in my case, anytime I put a building out into my little city area, I can immediately put a worker there out. Yeah. That way that building is properly firing now. I love the action selection choices, and I always found that as a fantastic mechanism, is where I choose an action, and I get to really do a really good action, but you guys still get to do a decent action. So in this case, like if I take workers, I could take a worker out of the main pool, and then I can take a second worker out of that pool. Or I know I can take a worker out of the pool and I can take one out of the supply. Because every time you're loading up an amount of workers into the pool. So I could take a worker out of there, get an extra worker out of the supply.
Yep.
You guys get to go get a worker. And if there's still workers in there, then I can take a third worker. And then whatever's left, and you just get out until they're out of the pool. So yeah, I love that the action selection on there. I love the fact that if I do plantations, I could take one of the face-up plantations, but if I'm the one that selects it, instead of doing that, I can go ahead and take a mine, which helps you long-term down the game, different stuff that it gives you. I love how you can resource it and try to be like, okay, I'm taking a sell action, and I take all what I have made and put it over there, and I load up a big boat, and then it's like I just got to wait till it fires off for me to get my money and my points and stuff like that. No, it's a fantastic game. I enjoyed everything about it, and I can't wait for this new version of it. Because what they did to Castles of Burgundy, I'm really going to wait for that one because they're going to knock it out of the park just like they did with Castles of Burgundy.
I wonder, now that Alea has seen what Awakened Realms has done with Castles of Burgundy, I wonder who approached the other.
Exactly.
Like, I mean, really, obviously the people at Awakened Realms, right?
Yeah.
They really know what they're doing. They make the over-the-top
like the
Mega
Nemesis, Tainted Grail, stuff like that. That's what they're known for. The fact that they wanted to get into the Euro game and make a pretty Euro game, because you never see this kind of Master Deluxe set stuff like that Awakened Realms did with the mini castles and stuff like that. So yeah, it is unbelievable what they're doing. I agree with you. I wanted to know who approached whom with that one, but Awakened Realms has really knocked it out of these parks because they're bringing back, first off, they're reprinting classic games, and they're taking away the Alea Browns.
The Alea Browns. Oh my goodness, that sounds like a really weird Midwestern baseball team. Or Alea Browns.
It sounds like a disease, honestly.
Sounds like after you ate a Taco Bell for a few days in a row, you got the Alea Browns. Oh no. The next game I wanted to talk about. Let's get out of this.
How's it going, Masmos? I agree that the new one from Alea is good looking. I can't wait to see what the dual layer boards that Awakened Realms are going to put in there and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, I mean, was it you that sent us the picture of those?
That was Gamehead Geek.
Yeah. Oh man, that looks pretty sweet.
Yeah, and you're like, I don't need that new version, and then you saw that, and you're probably like.
So I mean, I really like Puerto Rico, right? But that was the first time I'd played it in probably like half a decade. So there's that, right? Like Castles of Burgundy, I play fairly often. I get it to the table at least once a year. I try to. That one, I'm not so sure.
I struggle with getting the Alea games to the table because my wife likes games that look good on the table, and Alea doesn't.
No,
they're solid games. They're fantastic games.
Right.
They just don't look good.
Right, exactly.
And my wife, who did artwork, prefers pretty games.
That's right. Yeah.
So, your next game.
The next game I want to talk about is a 1 to 2 player game that I recently got to the table. I got a copy of it. I haven't
played it.
No, I know. Yeah, neither of the one player might, but I know I briefly told you about it after I played it. Yeah. This is Kinfire Delve.
I do want to try it.
Yeah, designed by Kevin Wilson, friend of the podcast. Mm-hmm. And it's just so cool because the way it works. Well, first off, I must preface: I've played a lot of solo games recently, and I don't tend to like games that are dice-driven solo games. Final Girl is an exception to the rule, but it is more random than I tend to generally like. And so when I saw what this game was, it's a dungeon delve. You're trying to get to the bottom of the well to fight the monster, and it's a lot of card play and dice rolling. I was very hesitant at first. But first off, I gotta say, the production, absolutely stunning. This is a top tier production. Even the character cards have gold printed on the back.
No, we saw
custom dice.
Copies of it at Gamma Expo.
Yeah, I didn't really look.
I looked.
As soon as I saw Kinfire thing, I was like, it's a dungeon crawl. I didn't really care. So I walked away.
I didn't because you know what they said? They said Kevin Wilson. I'm like, I know that guy.
Yeah, it's like, I know. Kevin Wilson is the reason I took a double look at it. Because I was like, okay, I like Kevin Wilson's stuff generally. And what this is you have a deck of cards, you have the boss in the middle, and you have 4 cards that surround them. And you have a big stack of cards, that's called the well. And what you're effectively trying to do is you're trying to survive long enough to get to the bottom of that well. Okay. You have 10 hit points collectively. So as either player takes hit points, it's off of the total.
Yeah.
And if you get to 0, you lose. And and there's other ways to lose as well, normally through exhaustion cards, which I'll explain in a minute. You get a hand of cards, everyone gets going. You choose a single character to go off, or an event, trap, whatever, obstacle. Mm-hmm. And you can play up to 1 action card, and your fellow player can play up to 2 boost cards, which will just buff it a little bit. That is an automatic amount of progress that you add to that card. If you get enough progress to the card that either meets the number or exceeds it, then that one is done, and you can get its benefits. However, each card also has a negative effect that if you don't defeat it and you encounter it, then you must suffer. And so here's where the dice come in. There's 4 custom dice, 3 of which have the 3 different colors on it. So there's 2 green faces, 2 blue, 2 red.
Okay.
And then the other die has it's a 50-50. It's either 3 lights or 3 darks, right? Okay. And it's either success or not, more or less. You roll all 4 dice, and if I'm on a green encounter, every green symbol plus every light symbol that's on that single die counts as a success. I progress it. Yeah. So I don't have to play an action card, but I could.
Yeah.
And generally speaking, it can help. Now, they'll do everything from causing damage to you, to making you discard cards, to adding more cards to the well, making it deeper, basically.
Okay.
But more often than not, a benefit will be remove a certain number of cards from that deck and delve deeper, right?
Okay.
Once a card is defeated, it's replaced with the top card of the deck after the bonuses go through, and you try and deplete that deck as fast as possible. Pretty neat, right?
Yeah, sounds pretty good.
You never draw cards in this game. And so you start with either 7 or 8, depending on if it's a solo or 2-player game. We played 2 players, so it's 7 each.
Okay.
And at any point, you can exhaust yourself and discard all your cards and take an exhaustion card, which are obnoxiously terrible effects. And if you get a certain number of a certain type of exhaustion, you just flat out lose. So it becomes really, really tense as you're like, I need the cards, I need these. I better take an exhaustion, refill back up to 8, let's hope, and then try again. It becomes incredibly intense as we're playing. We got down to the boss, and we were starting to do damage, but we didn't defeat him, so we lost. But our first try, we did really well. I was impressed. Oh, and the box. Oh my god. The box is like a 1/4-inch thickness.
Jeez.
Cardboard. Like, you could hit somebody with it and probably dent their skull. Like, it is one of the thickest boxes I've ever seen. I don't know why that's so amazing to me, but oh my goodness, that is like crazy good components. Card quality is beautiful. The art is really beautiful. The dice are really nice, and that box is just, and it can be used as a dice tray, of course.
Nice. Yeah. It was on my my wife wanted a birthday list of some of the stuff that I wanted for it. That was on my list. The one I got, which is fine, it finished off my collection, was 7 Wonders, which I am happy for. And I don't hate the game, I just like better drafting games in a sense.
Sure.
But I finally got that collection. But yeah, I was like, okay, well, now I know what I can have on my Christmas list and stuff like that. So
Kinfire, I was really impressed with. And if you get a different version, they're compatible. So you can play 3 or 4 players if you have 2 versions. Which means I can tell you what version I have, you get a different version, and we can cross-mogenate them.
Cool, nice. Kinfire Delve is the one you have, right? Or is it they have?
They're all Kinfire Delve. I have a specific one of the 3 titles.
Oh, okay, cool. I'll have to check them out. Mm-hmm. All right, so the next game I'm going to talk about is a game we also played on the night we played Puerto Rico 1897. This was Gamehead Geek's picks that week. We played this one, I think, Pokemon Splendor. That was one in the Puerto Rico game. And so we've talked about the Pokemon Splendor one. I kind of talked about it at the top of the thing, so I want to talk about the other game that we played because I really did enjoy this game. It is a small Brazilian game that was brought over by Spin Master and Arcade Wonders. This one is Comic Hunters. I really did enjoy this game a lot. Yeah. And I knew I was going to enjoy it. I was going out to go buy it. He got the copy before anybody else, so I was able to play it and realize I need to get the copy now. And so I had to go and buy I had to wait for our specific Barnes & Nobles to get restocked because I sold out.
Yep.
Ended up getting mine a couple days later. But no,
yeah.
It is a fun game. It's very thematic for a game that is very... drafting heavy, so Euro style gameplay with card drafting.
Yeah,
it is very thematic because you have your least favorite drafting style, the pick and pass.
Yep.
But it makes sense. It's basically you're delving through shelves and picking out comics that you want to do. Then you have like where you're going through an online auction, and so you're bidding some victory points for you at the end of the game. Not your actual victory points. There's a track that is going to be worth victory points to you at the end of the game. The more you spend on it, the less victory points you're going to have at the end of the game. But it could give you better comics. And so you're bidding on rows of comics that could be very powerful for you. And so I sacrificed those points because I was like, some of these rows have very big, powerful cards that are worth a lot of points because your cards are also your money because you're basically trading them for money to pay for your comic collection. And so I like that aspect of it too. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to trade these points to get this money because I know I can book a lot of points based on what I'm collecting in my comic series. And so some comics are worth more than others. So I think our highest one was Doctor Strange. And then Thor and Iron Man, I think, were next level and stuff. So they're worth more. So Doctor Strange was the highest one. It's going to be the worth most points based on your grouping of it. Then you had your next section and the next section. And then there's 4 comics at the bottom because we didn't play with Hulk and it was Hulk and Iron Man we didn't play with. Everything else was in the game and it's just based on the ranking. So you're trying to collect all these things with the different mechanisms. Like I said, the computer, the auction stuff. I like that one. I'm probably the one that liked this one the most was the flea market and where you can move a card down a line if there's an open space and collect one type of character through there, and it could be characters that have multiple people on there. But I was like, okay, if I do this, I get to buy a bunch of these Black Panthers. I'm not collecting Black Panthers, but again, this is money. So I get 4 cards in my hand. A lot of these are 3s and 2s. So that's going to help me pay for my collection.
That was a lot of yours in my strategy.
yeah. It's like, I'm going to pick up the cards I'm not collecting. One, it helps me because I'm taking cards away from what you guys are collecting. But also, I need money. And these are high-level money cards right now. Yep. I like that aspect. It only plays in 3 rounds. You're not going to do the same drafts per se. I think you're going to do every draft twice. You're going to do the pick and pass in the first round, and I believe the last round. You're going to do the auction.
The convention was on all 3.
Yeah, the convention is the only one that's on all 3. And I forget how the convention one works.
The convention was the
sliding one. Yeah. What was the flea market then? Because the auction
was the push and like the press your luck one.
The press your luck one. So fantastic game. I love the theme of it because I used to collect comics, and in fact, in that closet, I have quite a bit in there. In fact, I have almost a full run of the Outcast, which was the guy who did Walking Dead's his next big series that didn't last as long. Huh?
Carry on. I'm listening.
But so collecting these comics, the theme comes out, and I'm glad they worked with Spin Master to bring it over. This way, you can still have the Marvel license on it. Because if they'd made like a generic style game of this one, it'd be fine. So, in all honesty, I truly love this game, and this is the second one that is one of those Brazilian import games in there that I fell in love with. The first one being World Wonders. I really love that tile placement, putting the wonders out. This one, to the point where I pre-ordered the video game one. I think it's called Video Game Champions. Automatically, I'm like, done. I'm buying it. I'm getting it. Whenever it comes out, I'm going to get to play it. Because I loved how this one worked, and that's 2 from Brazil designers that are fantastic. So Brazil is actually right up there with Japan now, where I pay attention to the games that are coming from that area.
For sure. Cool. I did enjoy this one as well. I didn't like the pick and pass, but it was tolerable.
Yeah.
Overall, it was fun. Interesting theme. Very unique. Yeah.
One thing, I do want to upgrade my version of it.
Oh,
because
of course, yes.
the component quality is I honestly recommend if you're going to do this game and play a lot of it, sleeve your cards. The card quality is not the best. Again, it's Spin Master is the main production of this one. They wanted to keep it under a certain amount of dollars. I think it was $25 game.
Yeah.
So you're going to get it in the card quality and the tokens. The tokens are what I want to replace though, because they're kind of
Yeah, I'm sure people will 3D print them.
Yeah.
And have all sorts of good ones. Cool. Speaking of mass market games, or games from mass market companies, we had a group game day hosted by our friend Gamehead Geek. And, yeah, Spin Master, I know. Hey, Luminous. We had our friend Gamehead Geek host a game day for us, and we all went over there. And this was my pick of that week that I was quite excited about. Life in Reterra. I'm curious to know what your final thoughts will be, but this is two very different game designers combining the forces.
Speaking of which, I have the other one under the blanket over there.
I know. I want to take a look at that when we're done today. This is Eric Lang, which some of you guys will know from like Blood Rage and a number of different CMON games and different like big epic sprawling things. You have a massive box somewhere around here for some of his games.
Down there.
Yep. And Ken Gruel, which is of Happy Salmon fame.
Yeah.
And and amongst others, actually, I tend to really like his stuff. Like Mantis is an interesting game. Mystic Market.
I just saw another one of his too. That was like, oh, I know that name now because of you, of
right?
All people.
Exactly, and I promote his stuff because like I'm not going to say he's up to the prominence of like Phil Walker Harding, but I appreciate his simple design. Like his designs that he does just follow just a credence. He's not caring so much about mechanism. He's just like, hey, let's just do something that I think people will have fun with. Yeah. And Happy Sam is the best example of that. You know, it's brilliantly simple. So this game, Life in Reterra, it's a tile laying game. Kind of polyomino-esque, but not really. What you're doing is on your turn, you take one of the tiles, either one from your hand or one that on the display. You add it to your area until eventually you make a 4x4 grid of 16 tiles. You have one that starts with it, and you're trying to more or less group your terrain types together. Any terrain type that you have at the end of the game, that you have 7 or more of, contiguous ones, worth 3 points. Pretty cool. But you also have gears, and if you're able to group gears of the same terrain type together, then you're able to build buildings on top of it, which give you abilities and also points on top of those. Otherwise, you can get villagers or whatever they're called, but they're little like screen printed meeples. You can put those on the pieces or on the gears instead. There's also relics which are worth points. There's different sorts of abilities that let you manipulate stuff, adding junk tokens to the tiles, which none of us did. We apparently are Care Bears, which is fine by me, but still nonetheless. And what's really neat is that we played only set number 1. There's actually 3 full sets in the box with it. Yeah. And each have their own different styles of interaction. The components, they're not great. But considering it's a $30 game, and if they made it great, that would be like a $60 game.
They're not that bad, though.
They're not bad, though. Right, exactly. They're not great. The polyomino tiles that you put out on there, they're a little thin, right? Yeah. The general tiles, they're not bad. The wooden meeples are pretty cool. Yeah. And then same with like the junk and relic tokens, they're just like also kind of thin.
Yeah, and the trays are really nice too.
The trays are nice. Yeah. Yeah.
So my thoughts on this game is I liked it. I thought it was an enjoyable game. It's not something I'm going to go out of my way for, but we were talking about it is like if I can catch it like when Target does their buy 2 get 1 free deal, I'd probably pick it up then. Right. It's a fine game. I enjoyed it. I probably liked it the most out of the other 2 players at the table. Yeah. Between Damn It Dom and Gamehead Geek. I think you liked it the most, but
I think I did because I like.
But you're a sucker for a tile laying.
I do. Yeah, and that's almost a guarantee that if it's tile laying, you have to really mess it up for me not to like it.
I liked a lot of what it did. My big issue with it is that I wish you could draw up your hand as well if you play a tile out of your hand. Sure. Because the thing about it is like every time those really ones that really helped Gamehead Geek, I think, win the game was the energy sources when you could, get them all up. I never saw one of those at all. There was like one that got flipped up and immediately got taken by the next person. So I never saw any of those. And so it's kind of the luck of the draw type thing. Sure. But other than that, I have like minor quibbles with it, but I would honestly rate it about a 6 or a 7. It's a fine game. It's above average. I enjoyed it, and I would play it again happily.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, that's Life in Reterra.
No, but so the last game, and speaking of that game night, this was my pick.
Yes.
And I wanted to set this one up because we're trying to get prepared for spooky season. We're actually filming our September episodes now. When you're hearing this on the podcast and on YouTube, it's going to be September 9th. Mm-hmm. While we're recording it, it's still August. So... But I wanted to get us prepared for spooky season, October, because we're big Halloween fans. We love that kind of stuff.
That's right.
The season of Halloween and the spooky season.
Yeah.
But the game I picked was Halloween. It's a nice hidden movement game where it's one versus many, of course. One person is playing, think Fury of Dracula, one person's playing the bad guy and trying to eliminate all the other players. Now, there's 2 ways the bad guy can win. Eliminate depending on the player count, how many players. If you're playing 4-player game, it's 3 players or 3-player characters. There is player elimination to a sense, but you get a new character immediately out. There's a bank of characters that come in, and 2 of those characters make it easier for the players when they can come back in because they start with a weapon. And so for the players who aren't Michael Myers, they have to search for one set of keys. There are 2 in there, so you need either the blue key or the orange key, and you need to find the 2 children, Tommy and I forget who the girl's name. I think something with an L. I think Lily, maybe something like that. But you have to find those 2 kids, and you have to get to a car that you have the keys for because the doors are technically locked unless you have the keys. And every single one of those key items, there's 1 in each of the search areas, the location areas. And so your whole goal as Michael Myers is to hunt them down, chase them down, and attack them. If you have Michael Myers' abilities, you can go through hedges, which I think is really cool. You guys can't climb over hedges, but I can go through them, apparently. And I love the pursuit aspect of it.
He does the Simpsons
the back into it. And I love the pursuit action that Michael Myers can do is that he can clear across the board quickly by just going in a straight line.
Yeah.
And I like that because I was able to sneak up on you. You're like, where did he come from if he's here and there? And how'd you get up there? And I'm like, I went through the hedge, and then I went up to this space, and then on my next turn, I go around the building and come down the back way because I can go straight lines and hit you and then attack you type thing. I loved every aspect of it. We were listening to the Halloween soundtrack while we were doing it. Very thematic. It feels a little bit more weighted to the Michael Myers because there's 2 ways for him to win. Either survive a certain amount of rounds or kill a certain amount of players. Whereas you guys literally have to go through 4 search piles to get things. And you guys can communicate, but it has to be open information. I need to know what you guys are communicating. Yeah. So you literally could say, don't search that pile, we're good. Now I know you guys have a key item, I just don't know which key item.
Yeah.
But other than that, no, it is a fantastic game. I really do enjoy it. That I forgot to mention. There's 2 ways for Michael Myers to win. There's 2 ways for the players to win. One of them is how I said, you have to get the key items and hit there, or you kill Michael Myers by doing a certain amount of damage. And I think...
Which is an insane amount of damage.
It's an insane amount.
You have to do 12 damage and you roll a single die, generally. Without weapons.
One of the characters that you came in, Dr. Loomis, allows you to, no matter what your attack is, you get to roll an additional die. Sure. And it's 50-50 on the dice. So you have 50 blank space, or 3 blank spaces and 3 nice spaces.
Yeah. So for every 3 dice you roll, it's 1.5 damage.
Yeah, in a sense, yeah. Whereas Michael Myers... can roll 3 dice and immediately do some damage. But here's the thing, too. And I know there's a bit of a complaint about it, and I can understand where they're coming from, because if you do damage to Michael Myers, he's staggered. So his first action is always weakened, but his second action is not. It immediately goes back to normal. So if I can only move a certain amount of spaces... But if I still within reach, my next action, I get to do a full attack with my 3 dice rather than just 2 dice. So it's just that push and pull. Like I said, it's a little bit more weighted for Michael Myers from what I've seen. Now we played it at the full player count. I don't know how it feels in the smaller player counts, because in a 2-player game, Michael Myers has to last longer. He has to kill more players.
Yeah.
In a 3-player game, same thing. He's got to last, I think, up to the 2-player aspect as well. I think it's 24 rounds.
Yeah.
Or he's got to kill, I think, 6 survivors, all 6 of them, basically. So, I don't know how it's weighted on that one. But all in all, it was a fantastic hidden movement game, and it played quickly. We got it done in about an hour and a half.
Yeah, it wasn't bad at all.
No, I liked it. So, what are your thoughts on it?
I liked it. Like I said, it has a very similar flavor to Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Now, I know the Funko version or the Trick or Treat version?
Trick or Treat, the same publisher. And now, I know those are very different themes and very different designers and whatnot.
But if I remember correctly,
it has a very similar.
The Trick or Treat one is the full co-op, though, right?
Yes.
And just that tokens are coming out and that moves Leatherface.
Yep. Yeah, it was really neat, and I get a lot of that flavor in. If you put 3 of your heroes on hooks, you win in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, right?
Yeah.
You have 2 actions on your turn, and one of which is moving, right? Or like more or less. So like it just has a lot of flavor that is similar to it. Yeah,
no, but I really did enjoy it. I thought it was a fun game. Honestly, outside of Fury of Dracula, which I think is a fantastic game, and I'm glad I have it in my collection, I would play Halloween over it because it plays quicker.
And it's easier.
Yeah. And it's much simpler, too.
And it doesn't require 5 players.
Don't need 5 players for Fury of Dracula, but you're running a bunch of characters.
Yeah, so you need 5 players.
Yeah. That's my big annoyance there. But also, it's quicker.
Yeah.
That's my thing. Is like, think Spectre Ops quick, but with a good theme on it.
Right. Cool.
All right, your last game.
The last game I wanted to talk about today is one that I can't tell too much information about, but speaking of spooky games, you're a fan of Nemesis. You brought it up earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So when we went to the Gamma Expo, I learned about these little games that are called side quest games, and they're basically escape room
I still got to play mine.
Yeah, that are themed after board games, various ones. And I
believe it's from Awakened Realms, right?
Well, that one was
a conjunction with them,
right? Because that one is a Nemesis themed. It's from Board and Dice.
Board and Dice, yeah.
It's normally Euro games and pretty dense ones, but no, they've been working with another company called Lock Me, I think, and they're actual escape room designers. So I co-own an escape room business, as you know, and probably listeners have heard me talk about before.
Ad nauseum.
I know. Actually. Compared to some other news that I talk about, that's not as bad. But yeah, so our game night, my game night recently, just a lot of people were just out of town or sick or just couldn't make it for whatever reason, and so it was just me and my cohort who I design escape rooms with. Mm-hmm. So we spent most of the evening, instead of playing games, we actually spent it talking about our new experience that we're working on and different ideas and brainstorming some stuff. And at the end of the night, I always like to go, okay, well, let's play a mobile escape room. Like, let's do it, because we like puzzle solving and stuff. Yeah. And we brought out the Nemesis one. And we picked it because it said it was shorter. It said 60 to 90 minutes. It was 2 hours. But the thing is, it wasn't timed.
Yeah.
It handles that in a different way. It's not you win or lose based on the time. It is, and I'm not going to give too many spoilers, but in this specific one, you're trying to essentially rescue a character or something, and you have infection cards, and there's an event deck as well, and depending on how you play it, it might tell you to trigger an event deck, which would of course involve solving some kind of puzzle or getting information. And if you fail to do like any of the missions or get the wrong answer for a puzzle, you draw essentially from the infection deck. Now, that's not always true.
Yeah.
Whatever. But that's what you counter near the end, is that you'll just kind of determine whether your victory or loss condition based on how you've succeeded throughout those rounds. It's a very different system. One thing I will say that I like about it, and I see that they brought it over to the other side quests, they have an answer system that is fairly intuitive. It's like a big grid of symbols, right? Mm-hmm. And on the top, it'll tell you A, B, C, D, E, and there's not a specific order. They're just in specific spots. and you have these little bars that have like basically like a little computer chip on the top part, and then somewhere on the bottom part of that bar you have another computer chip, and there's certain lengths.
Okay.
And so each of these bars has a number.
And this is on a card, right?
No, this is on like little punchboard token.
Oh.
And so these bars have a color on it, they have a number, and they have a specific symbol. So your answer will always be 4 digits of whatever these are, but if you're looking for colors, then you're going to take like the green one, the blue one, the white one, and the red one, right?
Okay.
Or if you're looking for the numbers, you pull the ones with the numbers. And when you put them down on this grid, you start at the letter of puzzle you're doing, you connect the little computer chips together, and they somehow figured out a way that if all of the symbols to the left of all the bars match up and all the symbols to the right of all the bars match up, then you have the correct code. And it confirms it for you by doing that, and then where the computer chip would connect on the bottom is what card you will read next. It's such a cool idea, and it works really well. I can't encourage this enough. Like Unlock uses the app that tells you whether stuff is right or wrong. Exit uses that weird dial system, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of different things. Escape Room the game has like keys and stuff that you kind of punch in.
Yeah.
This system works really well. Their hint system is trash. It's literally, if you need a hint, read number 10 or whatever. And it's like, all right, well, then I just won't look at any other numbers. And it's like, oh, okay, I need a hint. All right, read it. And it's like, if you need more hint, read like number 40 something or whatever. That hint system isn't helpful.
Cool.
But the actual like determination system to put in the code, really, really neat and intuitive.
Nice, very nice.
So let's get into today's episode. We are going to be talking about games based on real life locations. Daniel, clarify what that means.
Whatever the heck you want it to mean. In all honesty, we're
much.
talking about like locations, stuff that you can person can actually physically visit.
Yep.
It could be a building, it could be a region, it could be a country, it could be a
natural
city,
landmark.
Natural landmarks. Yep. One of my cheaty picks over here is you could name a location to go to.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just stuff that you can actually physically visit.
Now, we didn't specify any kind of stipulations, but I limited myself, first off. I wanted each of my picks to be specifically named locations for myself, although I think, I mean, more or less. But I also, as looking through my list, I also tried to avoid, like, map games. Like, for example, Ticket to Ride, right? It has a USA map. Yeah. Yes, you can visit the United States. Mm-hmm. Or you could visit one of the cities that is on said map. But I tried mostly to avoid that.
Yeah, I did too. Like I said, there's a couple in here that kind of... I went more along the games that I actually enjoy.
Yeah.
That are based on real life. Because we were talking about it earlier. It's just... It's one of those things is that there is a lot of games based on locations that don't really fit thematic-wise in a sense. Yeah. It's very Euro-esque.
Yep. Exactly. And I agree with that. Like... I also avoided ones that were like overly abstracted, right? You know, and
I have one that's overly abstracted, but I'll explain why here.
Yeah, and I think I know which one that is. I bet I could take a guess, but it's one of those things where it's like if it doesn't have, I'll actually use an example of one that I got on my list. It was a game called Sahara, and it's an abstract strategy game where you're rolling around triangular pyramidal triangulagons, whatever they're called. You know, like they're 3-sided pyramids, right?
Yeah.
And you're moving it around this triangular grid, and you're trying to trap your opponent's piece. And it's from Gigamic, which I like all their wood games. Like, that, like, immediately was out, because it has nothing to, like, other than the fact that there's pyramid shapes, and it's brown colored for sand and stuff. It has nothing to do with, like, the Saharan desert.
Yeah.
And how anything Sahara works. So I eliminated stuff like that personally.
And technically, there's not really any pyramids in the Saharan desert. They're before the Sahara.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, there's that, right? And so the way I ranked it is these aren't necessarily my favorite games that are based on real life locations. These are the ones I feel bring out that location as much as they can, and for one reason or another. And I will clarify those as I get to them.
Yeah. So this is going to be interesting. It's a little more difficult than I was expecting it to be.
It was very difficult. We were texting earlier, and I was like, "Oh no, what
yeah.
did I do?"
Yeah, no, it's just
we have plenty of games to choose from, but it's.
But how do they make it feel and stuff like that? So like I was telling him, I could have made a list of Stefan Feld games because he's got that whole city collection, and they're 9 deep now.
Yeah,
something like that. So.
Yeah, we could have.
We could have, but
I did not.
We'll get into this. You want to flip the coin of doom and find out who goes first?
Yeah, that sounds good. And also, I do want to clarify. I also ranked them by my number one is what I feel most represents the location. That's how I ranked it. Not my favorite per se.
I kind of went in a combination. It fills a representation of a location, but it was also one of my favorites. So
cool, awesome. All right, here we go. Let's start off the first one. That'll be me. This first one is the most abstract out of all of these, and this one, I actually technically have 2 games because I'm going to give my buddy a shout out. But when you think New York, right? You think of Manhattan. You think of the districts. You think of what? What do you think?
Skyscrapers?
Skyscrapers, right? And so a game that's called Manhattan and you're building skyscrapers in the different boroughs. I figured you were going
to go with this one.
Yeah, it does make sense, right? Because at the end of the day, you're doing 3 things. You're trying to have the most control over different regions. You're trying to gain points based on majorities, and you're also trying to vie for the tallest skyscraper. How is that unlike anything that New York has ever done, right?
Yeah, no.
And so even though this is a more abstracted game, like you're literally just building blocks onto blocks onto blocks, I really think this is a charming little game. And I think it's one of those really neat ones that deserve to be in a lot of people's collections. And I like the way you play the card is based on your perspective. So if you play a card that has... they all have a 3x3 grid, which is the shape of all of the 6 different regions in Manhattan. In the board game, not the actual city. But you play the 3x3 grid, and if the bottom right one is colored in on my card, then I can fill in the bottom right based on my perspective of the board. And all you have to do is put enough blocks to exceed the number of floors or match the number of floors that the next highest person has. So that puts you in the lead. Awesome. And you can lock out your opponents in different ways by doing so. You can vie for the tallest building. Plays over a certain number of rounds. Very simple. I like it a lot. And the other one I wanted to give a shout out was Johnny Wood's Making Manhattan. It's a button shy game, and that also has a similar flavor, except you're building cards to the left and right of essentially the Central Park, right? And each of the cards scores in different ways, and I've always appreciated that. Also the same thing. It's like, yeah, well, if you have a bunch of business people, they need to eat, so let's put a restaurant here in the perfect spot, get the most points for different ways.
He should be having a game coming out on...
yes, sometime hopefully either this year or next year. Yeah, soonish. So, which we'll have him on the podcast when that's ready.
Yep, alright. So my number 8 is the most abstracted game on here that I have. And that is... something I had a reel of and made a reel of it while I was at sea.
Okay.
You played this at a specific location, seaside.
Yep.
And the reason why
I thought about it.
Yeah. Because you can play this seaside. You just name any beach, and this is that representation of the beach.
Yeah.
And the reason why I chose this one, it's because the components quality for one thing is fantastic. But it represents going to the beach.
Yes.
You have birds that are going to go after the crustacean type things. You have the seagulls. You have basically tide pools in a sense, because that's where you're going to see like the crabs. That's where you're going to see some of the arthropods and stuff like that.
Yep.
You're at the beach. There's a beach token. You're going to see waves coming in. That's what people surf on. So it hits a lot of the criteria because you can go to specific beaches. I've actually been to specific beaches while I was in Alaska. My wife went to I think it's called Driftwood Beach in Jacksonville, Florida when she was over there. So you just name a beach. and now you're at Seaside. So it fits. It is a location that you can visit, and you don't necessarily have to be at Seaside either. You can visit Lakeside and still be at a beach. So so for me, it is a bit abstracted. I like the little push and pull of it, where you're taking a token out and you're looking at both sides and you're playing one side. If it's a creature, it goes into the middle and you can immediately pull another one out. And if a certain creature, if you pull a beach, then you can, or a wave, you can flip over one of your beaches and stuff like that. But you can only score so many seashells depending upon how many beaches you already have in your thing. So it's a fantastic little abstract game with great components. I really do enjoy it. Like I said, you can go check our Instagram, TikTok, YouTube Shorts. It's all up there. Choose whichever one you want to see it on. But yeah, Seaside.
Cool. And Masmo, if it's on sale, you should definitely try Manhattan. I like it, but I also double check a review on it first. Just because I like it, I get why other people wouldn't.
And since you
simple.
And since you tend to play your games more 2 players, check and see how it plays at a 2-player game.
Right.
All right, flip the coin.
Very good. Number 7.
And this one is me. Number 7 is another kind of cheaty-esque pick. This is my Stefan Feld game. Because he does a lot of location stuff. Yeah. This is my favorite of the city collections, but I mean, you can do New York. That one fits into your Manhattan criteria. Sure. That one was pretty decent. You're building up the city with the skyscrapers, area control aspect. Yep. I picked Hamburg because you're basically vying to be the mayor and visiting the city and using the artisans to help grow the city by using the different multi-use cards and stuff like that. Right. I like that aspect of it, and it replaces another city, Bruges. So it's an interesting game. I like the fact that it's multi-use. Cards, it's my pick of the city collection. It's my favorite so far. Outside of Marrakesh, I really did enjoy Marrakesh a lot.
This is what I thought you were going to put.
I did like it, but honestly, Marrakesh doesn't feel... Marrakesh to me feels more mechanistic. It's more... I do this, these cubes come out, I do this, that type thing. This one, I actually feel like I'm doing stuff in the city by using the multi-use cards, because those are my workers in a sense, and they're allowing me to do something over here, or they're allowing me to do something over there, or I'm moving my mayor token to campaign this way. Yep. And so I have a little bit more of feel to do it. And so I do enjoy this one a lot. Like I said, this is why it's further down. This is my number 7 pick rather than my number 3 or 4. I like the game. I like the fact that it's based on a city. I like how it works, but it's more abstracted than anything else. Yeah. So Hamburg, my number 7.
And Masmo, we have both played Amsterdam, yes.
And in fact, we played Hamburg and Amsterdam in the same night.
Yep, it's true. So you said this was your only Stefan Feld?
This is my only Feld on my list.
I'm going to give a little bit of spoilers. I do not have any Stefan Felds. The one I considered was Roma.
The one I considered over this was Notre Dame. Notre Dame.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't blame you on that one. All right, my number 7. So this one is the one that feels the least like what it's representing, but not totally least. This is a Bruno Cathala game that I really like. It's a roll and write that I'm quite a fan of. Yeah, Trek 12, Himalaya. So the reason I picked this is because...
I figured this was going to be on your list.
Yeah, when I saw it, I was like, you know what? Like, at first it didn't seem like all that thematic, right? Because you roll 2 dice, do what you can, manipulate them accordingly. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought about how the 3 different maps that are included in the base game feel. And I remember, like there's certain parts where it's like, hey, you need only high numbers. Only low numbers, because this is like a rock face, right? Mm-hmm. You have to climb it. You have to go slow. You have to be cautious on this way. I like how all of the bubbles that are on the map kind of spread out to shape the mountains, and it makes sense. Like, there's not going to be bubbles in a place where you just can't realistically camp or have a campsite. And so, while, yes, the mechanisms don't quite allude to the theme as much, like, you don't feel like you're rock climbing in it, I feel like just the map making, the cartography aspect of it, and putting those up, trying to get those sets together, considering the restrictions that the mountain creates, I feel is a really cool idea, and it works really well in this game. I don't have too much more to say to it other than that. If you don't know how to play Trek 12, just really quick how the mechanisms work. You roll 2 dice, 6-sided dice, and you can either add the numbers together, subtract the smaller one from the bigger one, multiply them, or use either the higher number or the lower number.
Yep.
And each one of those you can only use 4 times throughout the game. So if I use all 4 of my addition ones, I can't go back to those. I have to go multiply, subtract, higher or lower from that on out.
Yeah, no, it's a fun game. I really do enjoy it. I just don't play it as often as you do.
Sure.
It's probably not one of my favorite Catholic games, but it's middle of the road for me.
Yeah. I love this little game. It's so fun. And I just like that theme to it. And the maps just feel so different. And there's like a solo campaign version.
Yep.
Where you can play it and it unlocks like tools and like other abilities and stuff. So it's really cool.
Nice.
Yeah, I like it. All right, our number 6.
All right, so my number 6 is probably one of the best ones that actually feel like what I'm talking about, the location. Because you're building up the location. And the reason why I have it further down is because I have a little bit of issues with it.
Sure.
Basically it's not very colorblind friendly. But it's from friend of the podcast's company, Keith Mateka. It is an enjoyable game. I do enjoy it. It has some great components. And this is Cape May. You're building up the city of Cape May, New Jersey, I believe. You're putting out the Victorian houses. You're actually touring through the city. You're trying to buy lots to build on it, either stores or houses. You're scoring points based on, and accruing money too, based on how these things are going to fire off for you. You have different events coming up that are historically accurate, like a great fire and stuff like that. So you can't build in a certain region because a fire broke out. So it does have a lot of the aspects that you would get in a city building style game. It is based on a real area. I also like the fact that it has bird watching in there because Cape May is a famous place for bird watching in a sense. You see a lot of seabirds over there. And so that is kind of cool. Like I said, the component quality is through the roof. It's one of the best component qualities from Thunderworks games because those little houses, the Victorian houses, and then you have the part where you can make it capped off, and so you put your house on top of the little white picket fence area. It fits really well in this kind of thing, but I knock it points because it's not super intuitive because you're basically playing cards out and moving stuff like that, which is fine. But then the bidding system, and then if I put this out, I can get money, but money is only tiebreaker at the end of the game, and I need to score points, which means I got to get buildings or houses out and stuff like that. Could be more colorblind friendly. That's the big thing, is they try to distinguish it, but the grasslands and the beach side, the grasslands and the concrete side are not very distinguishable, which is weird because the brown and green is where I always struggle, but you could tell the sand from the grasslands better than you can the grasslands from the concrete.
Right.
But no, it's a fun game. I do enjoy it. I need to get to the table more, but for me, Cape May was my number 6.
Awesome. My number 6, this is going to be proof that I did not put them in order of games that I like. This is Carcassonne. And the reason I have this as number 6, of course, if you know anything about our podcast, that is my number 1 favorite game of all time. The reason I have this as number 6 is because while it does feel thematic, you're building out the landscape of Carcassonne, the French city. That's not how that was done. Yeah. So what they really did, in the original French city, and I had no idea about this, is that there was a lot of little little homesteads or different areas around the city that pretty much got a unification thing, and they walled themselves in, right? And so they're like, all right, our group, we're our own thing. Let's just wall this off, right? Mm-hmm. Us over here, we don't want to be not walled off. So it's let's wall off. And so as you're building up the towns of Carcassonne in the board game, and you're laying the town tiles and the road tiles down, and as you're building out this area, it's not after the fact, right? The land wasn't there, but how you're building all these weird shaped cities, going by the architecture that you see in the traditional medieval town pictures with the blue cones on the spires, it just looks really cool. And I every time I play Carcassonne, I like just sitting back and going, okay, I got to see this. This is awesome, and I very much enjoy it. I do not own all versions of Carcassonne, but I own all the major expansions and the base game and most major versions. Not all spin-offs. But I just this had to be on my list, obviously, and this was partly one of the reasons why why I made this list in the first place, is so I could talk about Carcassonne more.
Oh yeah.
I'm just saying. What we do? All right, number 5.
All right, so me still. All right. Again, like I said, this is more of a fill of games I enjoy. This one is another one of those abstracted location games. But I really do enjoy this game a lot. So much so that I should be getting my Master Deluxe set in pretty soon. It should be hitting port here soon, if not in the warehouse.
Yeah.
And this is Teotihuacan, City of the Gods, where you're building the pyramid of Teotihuacan, which you can still visit to this day.
Yeah.
So you're building the Great Pyramid, and this is what I'm talking about, where, like, this is all mechanistic. This is a crunchy Euro. Yeah. You mentioned them earlier, Board and Dice. So this is them at their crunchiest, in all honesty. I do dig this game. Like I said, I'm looking forward to the master set that's coming in, because it's got, like, the pyramid's got foil on the pyramid pieces. The dice placement is really cool. And thematic in a sense, because your workers are aging as they're going along. So it's kind of cool. Even though it's dice, they are aging, and then you have to do a funeral type thing on there. So I do like this game a lot. And it is a bit abstracted, but it's a fantastic game. It is a location you can still visit. And I could have done something that dealt with Machu Picchu, but I don't think I've played many games that deal with Machu Picchu.
No, there's not many.
Yeah, there is some. Sure. But, I mean, you could have done something like Tikal, because that is a location you can visit. I haven't played the game, therefore I can't put it on my list. Yeah. But Teotihuacan, never visited. I have always wanted to go visit the Aztec pyramids, the Mayan periods, and stuff like that, because I'm a history buff, so I did have to get a history game on this list.
Of course. This one, so throughout my list, I saw a lot of games that were, point salad-y, Stefan Feld themed games, and there's so many different, like, you are farming in this country, or you are farming in this country, and you are farming in this country. Mainly from Uwe Rosenberg, but he's not the only person, right? And so out of all of these different, like, ones
so
that are
Bonanza's
based
on your list is what you're saying.
No, 'cause Bonanza's not a city. If it were, it still wouldn't be. But this is the only one of those that I felt really generally tied the theme to it.
Okay.
And this is Reykholt from Uwe Rosenberg.
Yeah, I still haven't played this one.
And what makes it neat, so take your standard worker placement, take some actions, get some vegetables, etc., etc. Yep. What makes this different, and the two reasons why it's based off of Reykholt in Iceland, is one, you have geothermal greenhouses. Mm-hmm. So you have to plan which building you're going to get. It can only hold certain types of crops and certain amounts of those. So that's a really important thing. Some will take more resources than others. So if I want the really rare crops, then I'm only going to get a greenhouse that is capable of that, which is normally fewer, which is pretty awesome. And then the second thing is they're having just a big feast. It's not a victory point track. You're just trying to feed people by trading in combinations of these vegetables that you're growing. All of them are mainly root vegetables, but they are stuff that is thematic to the area. And the way it looks from the cover, you have like a greenhouse and like a little farmstead that's all covered in snow. Yeah. And it has that little dark look to it. It feels Icelandic. Now, I've never been, but my dad used to go there in the Navy. He was there for quite some time, and he always told me stories about that. And I love the idea that I know that Iceland is the northernmost grower of bananas because they use those geothermal greenhouses. So that was a really cool thematic thing, and I thought out of all of the different farming simulation games, that one, because of those two nuances, that mostly he's created, and all due respect. Out of all those, I just feel like those little tweaks that were made for that reason actually made a lot of sense for it.
All right, so this is number 4, right?
That was number 5.
All right, so we got to flip the coin for number 4.
Number 4. Here we go. At this pace,
is me.
That was me.
Okay. Well, I didn't see it. You closed your hand so quickly I couldn't see what it did.
Sorry, my apologies. You can freeze frame it. So, a lot of the games, this will be mine. My number 4, a lot of the games that I was sifting through when I was looking at this, I wanted to do something that was like road trip themed. And so I went with like the Mother Road at first with Sid Saxon's. It was like
I know
a variation
what this is,
on
then.
this.
If you're going to do this one, I think I know which one this is.
Maybe. And then I thought about 10 Days in the USA. And
then I know.
Then you don't. Yeah, and I thought about these, but I was like, none of those really encapsulate one area. It's like, oh, you're driving around and all this stuff. But there is one game, and it's not even in the US, that is all about your travel journey throughout the region of Tokaido. I had to put this on, like, because all you're doing...
no, I get it. It should be on this list. I'm just not a fan of the game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even own a copy anymore, but the reason I put this on my list was quite simply, you are literally traveling through the region of Tokaido. I think that the Tokaido Prefecture, or Tokaido Island, whatever, in Japan, and you are doing exactly what you would be doing in traveling, and you're visiting those spots. You're visiting the landscapes. You're taking pictures. You're chatting with locals. You're staying at inns. You're buying souvenirs. You know, you're being a traveler, and not just like over a vast area of different types of things. All the theme that they put into Tokaido is something that somebody who's traveling to Japan would probably be doing, right? To get an authentic experience. Now, of course, does it super encapsulate it? Not necessarily, but I like the flavors that they added to it that I feel really made it special, and the fact that it's a super zen little game, unless you play with people like Will Wheaton, and then everyone hates you. But everywhere else, it's spot on. So Tokaido, that was my number 4.
And I just put a game on my short list. I'm not going to change anything on my thing, but that would have been, if I had thought about it till now.
The one you put on your short list?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would have made it on my list because it is that good of a game. I did enjoy it. All right, so my number 4, honestly, is very abstracted game. It is of a real life location. We have just talked about the designer in what I've been playing lately. It is a overproduced game about building Rome. My pick is Foundations of Rome. And it, again, like I said, it's very abstracted, but it is thematic in a sense, because you are building the ancient city of Rome. You're putting up statues. You're putting up... The very abstracted part of it is basically you're playing bingo. You're trying to draft a card to get a location for you can put some of your powerful buildings out there.
Yeah.
In fact, funny story, I got my shipping notice for Foundations of Metropolis for today. So I should have Foundations of Metropolis here soon.
That'll be fun.
Yeah, but
I look forward to that.
But it is a fantastic game, and it is about Rome. And the buildings that they produce for this game are some of the buildings that you can find in Rome. The cathedral-like-esque buildings. It is a fun game. It is so simple. Yeah. It's basically you're drafting cards or you're taking money. Once you draft a card, you get to put up one of your statues in a location. Once you meet a certain criteria, you can pay for it to put a building out there.
Yes.
Those are your actions. You draft a card, you gain money, or you put out a building. That simple. And you're just going to score points every round that you're going through. You're going through, I think it's 3 eras of building up Rome. It's a fantastic game. Emerson Matsushi, this is probably by far one of my most favorite games of his. The only reason I don't own a copy of this game, it is ridiculously priced for how simple this game is. And it's very overproduced for how simple this game is. When they announced that they were going to do Metropolis, I immediately, when the pre-orders went up, I put up a pre-order for it.
Yeah.
Because I love the gameplay. I love the style. It is just ridiculous how much shelf space it would take.
Yeah.
So, other than that, Foundations of Rome is my number 4.
Cool. That's it for number 4. Now on to our number 3s. Mm-hmm. Here we go.
And that is me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. My number 3 here is a location that you can visit. We had a conversation about this when I realized your historical sense sucks. And this was at the all-day gaming that Geek held up.
I don't remember this conversation, but okay.
We had this conversation when we were explaining its successor. We were talking about a success for the game I picked is something you can go visit in Russia. You thought it was a Soviet-Russian game.
Okay.
It is not.
Sure,
it is a Tsar game. It's based on the Tsar era.
Yeah.
This is the Red Cathedral.
I was just relating it to Tetris, and that's all I knew, all right? The cover of Red Cathedral just looks like... If you change Red Cathedral to the word Tetris, it's the same game. I'm surprised this isn't a polyomino game, is all I'm saying.
And so... Again, abstracted, but I like the fact of this one is you're doing a lot of actions and gaining a lot of resources to build up the cathedral, which is a place that you can actually physically visit. Mm-hmm. It is a fun game. I love the little rondel, moving the dice and taking the action and making them powerful type thing. Placing them on your player mat. I love that aspect of it, collecting your resources, and I love the fact that the Tsar gets on your case if someone builds above where you're trying to build.
Yep, which is awesome.
So, this one for sure was one of the first one I got on my list. In fact, this is probably the most thematic of everything left. The other stuff is not all that thematic per se, but the other two games above this one are some of my favorite games of all time.
Yeah.
But Red Cathedral... really cool. Like I said, dice rondel, resource management. You're actually building the physical cathedral, which feels really cool, especially since I have the upgraded components from Board Game Geek, their store. Mm-hmm. So you're putting up these really beautiful things on top of the cards, and so you feel that you got that nice spire. You have those really cool doors that are facing in there. So it is really neat. The Red Cathedral, my number 3.
Cool. My number 3... So your number 3 was about an epic building. My game also is as well. But my game is just silly. It is completely ridiculous. It is nonsensical and absolutely absurd, and that is incredibly thematic. My number 3 is the Castles of Mad King Ludwig.
Because it's true. It's
because
so true.
That's what he was known for. He built the most ridiculous... It's basically the Winchester house, right? It's completely... over the top. This guy was completely ludicrously ridiculous, building the most absurd castle. And in this game, you are too. Because you are building up ridiculous castle foundations, trying to score them in different ways, bidding on different room types. And it's cool if it doesn't all fit. That's fine. That's not the point of it. If you make parts of it that really don't logistically make any sense at all, that's fine. Because that's part of the theme.
Yeah.
Castles of Mad King Ludwig, I haven't had it in my collection for a little while. But every time I remember it, every time I played it, I've enjoyed myself. And just because it's such a charming theme, and it really does work. These ridiculously shaped building pieces that shouldn't make sense together, and they still don't. But just scoring in different ways, bidding on, or setting the price for everybody to bid on. Or not bid on, but like either accept or not. You know, it's like a price setting game. And then on top of that, using that to build this ridiculous structure just like he did as well. I can't think of a more thematic game that's in mine except for my top 2, actually, which I feel is slightly more thematic.
Okay.
So, that being said, Castle of Mad King Ludwig, my number 3.
Number 2s, and starting with me. This is probably one of my favorite games of all time. I've really enjoyed every play of it. It is a city you can visit, and it kind of fits thematically because you're trading in this city. In fact, your family members are trading in this city. Mm-hmm. You also have criminals in that family. This is Istanbul. Now, thematic-wise, it fits and it doesn't fit because it's such an abstracted game. It's basically a pick up and deliver, but when you deliver, you're basically taking the action, and it's a race to a certain amount of points. Depending on the player count, I think it's like 8 points for a 2-player game. It's 6 points in a 4-player game. So it varies. But Istanbul is a place that you can go visit. And a lot of the buildings that you see there in the game itself are still in Istanbul. Sure. You can still go to those famous markets and still trade in there. And you can still gamble in there. And you can still go get a cup of coffee in Istanbul.
Yep.
So a lot of that stuff is still very present in the city itself. It is also one of those cities I've always wanted to visit. It's one of my bucket list type of cities.
Not Constantinople?
No.
Okay, that's fair.
But Istanbul is one of the best games. out there, it's probably one of my favorite Kinderspiel winners, and I have the complete set now.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's just, this was a hard list for me, so like I said, I just had to go with favorites, in all honesty. In fact, my number one is going to be a cheaty pick per se, but...
That's never happened on this podcast before.
Well, especially for number one.
Yeah, especially for number one. All right, so mine, I need to preface mine first. The gameplay takes place in technically 1.5 different locations. They're real locations. One player plays one location, and other players play. I guess you could call it a vehicle in a way. Mm-hmm. But they are also have a destination of a real location as well. This is Apollo NASA moon missions, and this is made by Buffalo Games. And one player is playing ground control in Houston, trying to direct there. It's an asymmetric cooperative game. And the other players are astronauts in the spaceship flying to the moon. Okay. So, it's unlikely most people don't tend to go to the moon all that often.
True.
But plenty of people are in Houston. So, therefore, this counts because it's not based off of Houston per se, but it is based off of the moon as the location, as the destination that you guys are traveling to. Yeah. The reason I put this on my list is I don't even own this anymore, just because I never got it played. Is I really like the asymmetry involved with it. As ground control, you're trying to not let things break too much while trying to sustain the other people. They're trying to conduct the experiments that they need to last, get the right controls of the spaceship in order to get to the moon successfully. There's a number of different stages that you go through, and overall it's just a really neat experience. It's something that I think a lot of space enthusiasts should try at least once, and I feel like it captures it better, the whole space, the whole realistic space style missions the best.
Okay.
Your thoughts? I know you've never played it.
I've never played it, so I can't really make a choice on it. And it's funny because right above my head, you can see I have Race to the Moon. Anything?
One small step. Yeah.
I thought about putting that on that list, but that to me is more of a historical game because it's about the space race than actually visiting the moon. Right.
Yeah, and mine, like I said, you're actually on those missions, and they even come in the little Mylar bags, right? So each of the mission packets, you have to pull that out, and they have different challenges inside of those packets. So that's kind of cool. So it's like a freeze-dried food kind of thing.
Yeah.
Overall, I just thought it was really an interesting little game.
Cool.
All right.
Number ones.
Our number ones.
All right. Starting with me. Good, because this is by far...
I'm trying to think of what your number one is.
Is a cheaty pick because you can go anywhere on this game, in a sense. Because it is Earth.
Yeah, okay.
But my reasoning behind it...
No, I know. This was on my short list. Trust me. This was in my thought.
The reasoning behind it is because a lot of this game is about biomes, building island biomes and stuff like that. And people go to these island biomes and study them.
Yes. No,
And this is why I put it on my list. One, because it is a fantastic game. Technically, we are on Earth, but I was going more along the lines, you go to these island biomes and study. In fact, one of my things I wanted to do growing up was study these biomes. Yeah. Going to these different locations and study this kind of stuff. And then I realized I don't want to deal with anything that can sting me, bite me, poison me, or envenomate me.
And yet you live in
the desert.
Okay.
Yeah, but I know how to avoid those because I lived here. Yeah, if I go somewhere new, I don't know how to avoid those.
That's true. You're not out backpacking every weekend. That's true.
Exactly. But I like the fact that it's an engine builder.
Yeah.
I like the fact that you're integrated or paying attention on everybody's turn because it's one of those things I talked about in what we've been playing is that I like what Puerto Rico did with the fact that if someone selects this, they do it, but I also get a lesser power to that action. And Earth does that really well too. It's like, hey, I'm going to be building an island, or building terrain or something, my tableau in a sense, putting cards out here. I can do that too, or I could take soil and that sort of thing. And I really like that aspect of that tableau building, that engine building, of building that biome and how everything kind of triggers everything else. Fun, engaging play. fantastic engagement where it is multiplayer solitaire in a sense, but you are paying attention to other people's turns because it's like, okay, you did that, now I'm doing this. Okay, now that you fired that, now I can fire all my yellow cards.
Yep.
I like the engagement. I like the fact that it's about visiting these biomes and studying the faunas, the creatures, the flora that is evolving in these biomes and stuff like that. So for me, my number one, Earth.
Cool. So yeah, I'm not going to disagree with you. I want to be very clear. This was 100% on like a thought in my list, and I was like, just something in the back of my mind. I just couldn't justify it on my personal list, just because I just didn't feel like the theme of it came through in the way that these other games did. I 100% agree with you. I just couldn't do it because it definitely crossed my mind. I was like, could I? I could put Planet too for the same reason, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't.
I found Planet, and Planet was kind of on my short list. I just found that more abstracted.
Right. So do you have any idea what my number one is?
No, I have no clue.
Yeah.
Because I thought Carcassonne was going to be further up, so...
Yeah. So this is a game that you and I have played.
Okay, that narrows it down.
Out of all of the games that are named after whatever generic city it is, this one, I always appreciate it when I play a game that makes me interested in the backstory of the game and why it picked this theme. And I feel like the more I looked into it, the more I truly understood how thematic this game was, even though it's a point salad Euro. You are building up the urbanization of a major city in Spain.
Oh,
Barcelona.
I thought this was good. This is actually on my short list.
Yeah, Barcelona is one of the most intriguingly thematic Euro games I've played. And I mean that, like, genuinely, because you're focusing around Serta, I think his name was.
Yeah.
Pretty much the godfather of urbanization and how to design a cityscape in a way that becomes modern and is useful and utilitarian, that you can that it becomes the groundwork for pretty much all urbanization cities. And you are building the city in that way, trying to appease him, but also trying to plan in structures that help out the people, that give you the beautification that you want, and while keeping the layout of the city, and using that city to do really cool actions and like bonuses and combos and stuff. There's almost not a more thematic city building game that I've played.
No, I agree. It's a very interesting game. I really did enjoy it. And like I said, it made my short list.
Yeah.
It's one of those, though, that I wanted to play more of before, because I wanted to get into the every little nook and cranny that you can get into this game. But I will say this game really put the designer on into my brain, so much so I want to try Windmill Valley.
Oh, absolutely.
When Dammit Dom says whenever he gets it, he's going to bring it over and we're going to play it because of how fantastic Barcelona was. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, this was just like, it was such a good experience. And normally when we play a city game, there's very little city involved in it, or it's overly city and then it's not mechanistically not all that great, right?
And what I found really interesting about this one too was that it looks a lot harder than it actually is. It's actually very straightforward how this game works. Because I remember the first time you busted out, you're like, I just don't want to learn this. Because there's all these pieces.
I hadn't read the rules yet.
There's all these little steps. There's all this going on. But you're like, once you got through it and you went through the video and read your rules, and you're like, oh. And then so when you're explaining it to us, we were just like, oh man, this looks very intimidating. There's a lot of moving parts in there. And you're like, oh no, then this happens. And then you pick this section, you do this action.
Yep.
And it's like, really? That's it? Yeah, that's it. You just do this. You can move up on this track. You move up on this track. Yeah. And if you pick here, you do this action from this action. Wherever you're intersecting, you're doing both those actions. So we're like the Targi aspect. Like, exactly.
Yep.
Fantastic game. That's a good pick. Like I said, it was on my short list, but it was something that I want to play more of.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I want to play more of it just in general, whether it's on my list or not. So before we end out our episode, what are some of the ones that crossed your mind that you did or did not put on there?
So the one I just wrote down and thought about because you reminded me of Takedo. I just recently played it. You missed out on it. It was one of our all-day gamings before the most recent one. Mm-hmm. And this was Let's Go to Japan.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
That was a fantastic game. It's about visiting Kyoto or Tokyo in Japan, and you're going back and forth, and you're taking the train and stuff like that. So that was really neat. It's really cool. It's a fantastic game from AEG. They knocked it out of the park with this one. Luckily enough, I got to play like the super uber version of it because damn it, Dom he did the Kickstarter and got all the really good bits and pieces of it. But the base game should be fine too.
Yep.
But yeah, Let's Go Japan was on my short list. Barcelona, as you mentioned. Mm-hmm. I mentioned Notre Dame earlier. Ticket to Ride, of course. One that made my short list and almost actually made my list was El Grande.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Because it's basically Spain. You're just basically dealing with the classic Spain where they're integrating into one kingdom.
I thought about Condottiere for the same reason.
Yeah. The Great Wall, though the game is not as great as I would like it to be, it is a place that you can visit, and it's actually historical, makes sense too, because you are fighting off the Mongols as you're building up the wall. Mm-hmm. So that fit really well. Hadrian's Wall is another one, that little abstracted, flipping right, rolling right game.
Sure.
Jorvik was on my short list because I like that one. Yep. Yokohama's a fine game. Yido was another one that was on my short list too.
Yeah, Yokohama's that's a great game. Yeah.
Lewis and Clark of the Expedition was on my list.
That was on my short list too. Yeah, but again, if it was.
It was
like
more
a general
historical for me than actual, like going through the river and stuff like that. Raiders of the North Sea / Scythia, because those are actual locations in the real world. Mm-hmm. Sonora was another one, but it's so abstracted with that one because it's just a flicking right game. Yeah. But yeah, those were my short lists.
I thought Santorini might have appeared on your list.
It was. I thought of it, but that game, honestly, they made a New York style game based on Santorini. So.
Yep. Exactly. Games for a Real Person episode. Yeah, Lewis and Clark would be a good one. So mine, one of. Just because of how much I love the game, Jaipur was on my list.
I figured that was.
Yeah. Costa Rica was also one. That was the Matthew Dunstan, Brett Gilbert one, where you're leading expeditions to take pictures. And it's kind of like a group press your luck kind of thing. Yeah. It's kind of cool. Paris, La Cité de Lumière. That was one. It's a 2-player De Vere game. And what's really neat about it, it's like Paris, the City of Lights, right? Yeah. And what makes it really interesting is that you have these special actions, and they printed them on postcards. And so you're drafting the postcards with the pieces along with it. That was really cool. Santa Monica was one that I thought. Just
I thought that was going to be on your list.
At first it was, but it just got bumped up by the others. And then this other one, I almost put it on just because of the historical aspect of it. But even though it is based off of a building, and the location was the building, that more people know about the concept of this game than they do about that it was even a building. It's so much that historians actually have to explain that, this is why it's called that, and that was Watergate. I thought about putting that on because...
Yeah, I find that weird that people don't know it's an actual hotel.
Right. It's so synonymous with, the Watergate scandal. It's it's just like, what did he do with a gate of water? What?
Yeah, what is the Watergate? Yeah, what is that all about?
And then when it's explained, that's the hotel that they broke into.
No. The Watergate scandal, it wasn't the hotel that they broke into. They broke into the offices across from the
offices
hotel.
Across from the hotel, and that's where they found it.
Yeah.
Right, or discovered it, and that's where they got the call from.
Yeah.
So it was just that I considered that. That was definitely on the shortest list. But yeah, I mean, I had so many. I thought about Marrakesh, the carpet game.
Rajas of the Ganges was short list. Marrakesh was on my short list, but yeah, you had 50 some odd games.
Kobayakawa was one. Or not Kobayakawa, Hanamakoji.
Yeah, Jamaica was on my short list too. I just took it off because I'm I don't care much for that game.
Bora Bora. Yeah. There was Amalfi was one.
I thought of Seven Wonders as well, but a lot of those things you cannot visit anymore. Yeah. It's the Great Pyramids are still here. The lighthouse is gone. The Colossus of Rhodes. These are all the ancient wonders that are really not here anymore.
San Juan was one of my shortlist ones.
A Freedom of the Underground Railroad was another one that was on my short list that I thought about, but again, it was the same thing as One Small Step, where it was more historical than it was, because it is a region. It is a region of the United States of America, but it's more about a time frame of the United States.
I did Scotland Yard for the same reason. It's like, it's London, right? It is Scotland Yard, and the transit system is a super important system in there.
Yeah.
I also thought about the Grizzled, actually.
I thought about the Grizzled too, but again, it was a time period.
The French,
it was more of a time period,
Yep. Cool. Well, that ends our episode today.
Yep.
Tell us what you think in all of our comments. First off, if you ever want to contact us directly, you sure can. You can email us at everydayboardgames2020@gmail.com, whether that's to give us ideas for future episodes, to say hi, or even enter in future contests. Email us.
I'm already going to give a little hint here. Get ready for the November series of recordings, because that might be our next giveaway.
Oh, so stay tuned for that. One of your biggest entries is by emailing us. Also, you can follow us on Instagram, instagram.com/everydayboardgames, and take a look at our posts. We've been trying to be more active on there, so go check it out, support us, share those posts that we put on there.
As well as our video re-uploads, our reviews, and our shorts are found on YouTube under youtube.com/@everydayboardgames. If you like what we do, there are 3 things you can do to help us grow on the platform. Like, down below, comment, and subscribe. And it helps us out growing in this thing. We're really trying to get our YouTube going off with the reviews and stuff like that, because
why not, right?
Yeah.
Also, we want to thank you for tuning in live. All of our friends, Creative Chaos, Masmo, Illuminous, thanks for tuning in. And anybody else who joined us on our live stream, you can too. We stream every time we film an episode. We put it on twitch.tv/everydayboardgames. And make sure you follow us on here or subscribe, whichever one it is. That you can do the free one, or you can pay us money. That's fine. That helps pay for the bills here. But that way you get notified every time we join live, and you can join in on our conversation here.
And usually if you subscribe to either one of the platforms, it's an entry to a contest.
Spoiler alert!
And all audio versions can be found on most podcast platforms under Everyday Board Games Podcast. This includes Spotify, Apple, Amazon Music, and Podbean.
So we want to thank you so much for tuning in. As always, I've been your host, Daniel.
And I've been your host, Daniel.
And safe travels. Safe travels. Since we're talking about traveling. Anyway, this is shenanigans now. We want to thank you for listening to Everyday Board Games.
So remember, every day is a good day for board gaming.